Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we take the sources you're curious about and we really dig in to pull out the most fascinating details, helping you get properly informed without feeling buried in information.
And that's the goal, yeah.
Today, we're embarking on a really unique and, I have to say, intricate journey into a text known as Liber O, or sometimes Mams et Sagittæ. It was published under the A.
A very specific and influential text in certain circles.
Absolutely. Now, before we really dive into the nuts and bolts of this thing, it's super important to understand what we're trying to do here with this deep dive.
Right. Our mission, so to speak.
Exactly. Our goal isn't about endorsing or, debating whether the concepts in Liber O are objectively real. That's not the point here. In fact, the text itself says this right up front, which I found fascinating. It states, "It is immaterial whether these exist or not."
It just lays it out there. No ambiguity.
None. It continues. By doing certain things, certain results will follow. Students are earnestly warned against attributing objective reality or philosophical validity to any of them.
So it's preemptively telling you not to get hung up on the literal truth.
Precisely. So our purpose, instead, is to explore this really complex system just as it's presented, focusing on the fascinating, intellectual and practical framework it lays out for internal development.
Indeed. We're looking at this as a kind of highly structured manual. It's for specific internal practices.
Right.
And it's designed not really for abstract philosophical debate, but to achieve very concrete, observable results within the practitioner's own consciousness.
Observable by the practitioner, you mean?
Primarily, yes. Internal results.
Right.
And the core benefits highlighted in the text are, well, they're compelling and pretty universally appealing, I think.
Okay, like what?
First, a widening of the horizon of the mind. That suggests, an expansion of awareness, of perception.
Seeing things differently, maybe more broadly.
Exactly. And second, an improvement of the control of the mind. This implies gaining greater mastery over your own thoughts, emotions, your internal states.
Which sounds incredibly useful, frankly.
Absolutely. These are profound aspirations, right? Regardless of the symbolic framework you might use to get there. So we'll be breaking down exactly how this highly structured, kind of esoteric manual suggests one might achieve those benefits.
And the very specific, detailed steps involved. Because it is very detailed.
Oh, extremely detailed, yes.
So if you're curious about historical practices aimed at, extreme mental discipline, or maybe how incredibly complex symbolic systems can be used as tools for deep self-exploration and understanding,
then you're probably in the right place.
You are definitely in the right place.
Great.
Let's dive deep into Liber O. Okay, let's unpack this. Liber O really doesn't mess around. It starts with this direct warning in the very first paragraph. It's very easy to misunderstand.
Sets the stakes high from the get-go.
Totally. And it immediately lays out this pretty fascinating disclaimer about the nature of all the things it's about to discuss, the gods, spheres, planes, and many other things. Like we said, the text makes it abundantly clear that the objective reality or philosophical validity of these entities is, quote, immaterial.
It doesn't matter if they're real in the way we usually think of reality.
Right. It's not concerned with whether they literally exist out there somewhere independently. The focus is purely on the results that will follow from doing certain things.
Action leads to consequence, regardless of the underlying metaphysics.
Exactly. And it explicitly warns students against getting caught up in assigning objective reality to any of the phenomena or beings they might encounter.
Which is quite a counterintuitive thing for a text dealing with gods and spirits, isn't it?
It really is. So what does this direct, almost pragmatic declaration mean for someone approaching this material? It sounds less like, a theological text where belief is number one.
Right, where faith in the divine entities is paramount.
Yeah, and more like a user manual for the mind. Or maybe even like a psychological training program where the focus is just on the measurable outcomes of specific actions, whatever the truth of the symbols involved.
That interpretation of Liber O as a user manual for the mind is really compelling. I think it gets right to the heart of the text's unique approach.
Yeah.
Because if the objective reality doesn't matter, then what does matter? And the text answers this directly by outlining those two primary advantages we mentioned. And they are pretty universally desirable. A widening of the horizon of the mind, and B, an improvement of the control of the mind.
Expansion and control.
Exactly. So this frames the entire endeavor not as some dogmatic belief system you have to buy into, but as a journey of self-mastery and expanded perception. And think about it. In our modern world, right? Information overload, constant distractions. the ability to expand your perception, gain greater control over your internal states.
To actually focus.
Yeah.
Manage your thoughts.
Precisely. To see beyond the immediate noise. That's incredibly relevant, isn't it? It's about cultivating a profound internal transformation, a shift in your own cognitive landscape that yields real practical benefits for anyone striving for, greater mental clarity and discipline in their daily life.
And the text doesn't shy away from warning about the sheer intensity of this internal work either. It says, if a student actually succeeds, they might find themselves confronted by things, ideas, or beings too glorious or too dreadful to be described.
Quite a statement. Not exactly beginner-friendly language.
Not at all. This isn't just a casual experiment you dabble in on a weekend. There are profound psychological implications.
Right.
The text stresses the essential need to remain the master of all that he beholds, hears, or conceives. If you don't, well, otherwise he will be the slave of illusion and the prey of madness.
Wow. High stakes. Illusion and madness.
Seriously. It also warns against being led astray, obsessed and overwhelmed by his results, and crucially, against mistaking the first resting place for the goal.
So don't get complacent with early success.
Exactly. It's like a mental marathon. You absolutely cannot declare victory too soon because the real work, maybe the dangerous work, is just beginning.
That really underscores the gravity of the practices outlined in Liber O. It's certainly not presented as a parlor trick, is it? Or something to be approached lightly.
Definitely not.
This is deep psychological work. It demands an extremely high degree of self-awareness, self-control. The metaphor used is quite vivid. Taking off his armor as if you were a victor ere the fight is well begun.
Like celebrating at mile 5 of a marathon.
Precisely. Yeah. It indicates the long-haul nature of this work. It's a caution against, spiritual pride, or maybe more accurately, against getting fixated on those initial breakthroughs.
Because they could be seductive.
Deeply seductive, potentially. The text seems to suggest that early successes could lead the practitioner to think they've hit the jackpot, reached the ultimate goal, when actually they've only reached a minor waypoint. This really highlights the long-term commitment and mental fortitude required. And a kind of disciplined detachment from those early wins is needed.
That makes perfect sense. The idea that success itself can be a trap is a really interesting twist. And beyond these psychological warnings, the text sets clear, almost athletic prerequisites before a student can even start.
Yeah, you can't just jump in.
No. It states one must be in good health and have attained a fair mastery of asana, pranayama, and dharana.
Right. And these aren't just random terms. They are foundational practices directly from yoga traditions.
Okay.
Asana refers to physical postures, basically ensuring bodily stability and comfort so the body isn't a distraction.
Makes sense.
Pranayama focuses on breath control techniques, which are absolutely crucial for regulating the nervous system, managing energy levels, calming the mind.
Right, the breath-mind connection.
Exactly. And dharana is concentration, the ability to hold the mind steady on a single point without wavering, without distraction.
So physical stability, breath control, and focus.
The trifecta. So this system isn't just throwing you into the deep end unprepared. It's building upon established, time-tested techniques for body and mind discipline. Techniques recognized across various traditions for cultivating that essential physical and mental stability.
So it's holistic, rigorous preparation.
Very much so. It implies that before you can even hope to control external phenomena or even your deep internal states, you absolutely must first master your own physical body and your basic mental faculties.
Like needing basic fitness before climbing a mountain?
That's a great analogy. You need to be physically and mentally fit before embarking on this really demanding intellectual and internal expedition.
And once you've achieved that baseline physical and mental fitness, the very first and arguably most demanding intellectual step the text insists upon is this. You must first obtain a thorough knowledge of Book 777.
Ah yes, Book 777, the cornerstone.
It specifies over 40 columns from this book that need to be committed to memory. 40.
It's a monumental task, no exaggeration.
And the purpose. To understand the nature of these correspondences.
And it's crucial to understand this isn't just rote memorization like learning multiplication tables.
Yeah, I know. How so?
It's about internalizing this incredibly intricate web of associations so deeply that it becomes second nature, almost intuitive. Book 777 acts as this comprehensive table of correspondences,
Okay.
mapping seemingly disconnected concepts. Everything from, say, Hebrew names of God, various deities and archetypes from different pantheons, planets, specific colors, plants, perfumes, magical tools, even parts of the human body, abstract quality.
I know everything.
Pretty much everything relevant to the system, yeah. It maps them all to a unified symbolic framework. It truly is, as you hinted earlier, a kind of Rosetta Stone for this specific symbolic language. It provides the underlying code, the connections that link everything together within this system.
So by memorizing these 40-plus columns,
By committing these extensive lists to memory, the practitioner is meant to build this deep, intuitive grasp of how all these diverse elements are conceptually linked.
not just knowing the links, but feeling them.
Something like that. It allows for a multi-sensory and multi-layered approach to any single idea, which is exactly what we'll get into next. It's about building a mental architecture where every concept is cross-referenced with this vast network of symbolic connections. It's foundational.
Okay, so once you've essentially downloaded and internalized this massive database of correspondences from book 777, which sounds like a Herculean task in itself,
It absolutely is.
how does Liber O then suggest you use it? How does this help widen the horizon of the mind and improve the control of the mind?
Right, the practical application. Well, the text provides a very concrete example. It shows how to use this system to gain knowledge of some obscure science, and it breaks it down with incredible detail.
Okay, walk us through it.
So let's say your aim is to gain knowledge of sciences. You'd find this concept perhaps in column 40V, line 12 of book 777.
Got it, line 12.
Then you systematically look up line 12 across all the other relevant columns in the book.
And what pops up?
What you discover is pretty astonishing in its breadth and depth. This single concept, knowledge of sciences, isn't isolated. It's immediately connected to the planet Mercury.
Okay, Mercury, communication, intellect. Makes sense.
Right. Then the number 8. Lineal figures like the octagon and the octagram.
Geometry, too.
Oh, yes. The god associated is Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom and writing.
The scribe god.
Exactly. Or, in a Kabbalistic context, it's linked to the combined Hebrew divine names, Tetragrammaton Adonai and Elohim Sabaoth. Its archangel is Raphael. Its choir of angels, the Bene Elohim. Its specific intelligence is called Tyriel, and its spirit, Taftatharaf.
Wow, that's already a lot of specific names and hierarchies.
And it doesn't stop at these sort of abstract entities. Then you get into the sensory attributes, the colors of this complex palette. Orange, yellow, purple, gray, and indigo rayed with violet.
Very specific colors.
Extremely. Its magical weapon is the wand, or the caduceus, Mercury's traditional symbol. Its perfumes include mastic, sacred plants, vervain, jewel, opal, or agate. And its sacred animal is the snake.
So for one concept, you get planets, numbers, shapes, gods, angels, spirits, colors, tools, smells, plants, jewels, animals, an entire ecosystem of related symbols and sensations.
Precisely. It demonstrates the incredible depth and, crucially, the interconnectedness of the system. For just one abstract concept like knowledge of sciences, there's this vast array of tangible, sensory, and archetypal correspondences.
It's not just intellectual.
Not at all. It's about building a multidimensional mental architecture around that idea. Imagine not just knowing Mercury links to intellect, but feeling its specific color, that vibrant orange and yellow, or smelling its distinct perfume, mastic, or seeing its geometric form, the octagram, and connecting it all to powerful archetypal figures like Thoth and Raphael.
You're embedding it much more deeply.
Exactly. It forces a holistic, almost intuitive grasp of the concept. It integrates it into the mind in a way that traditional learning, just reading about it, rarely achieves. The sheer volume of interconnected elements ensures the concept is imprinted across multiple cognitive pathways. It creates a truly rich, resonant mental landscape around that one idea.
So you're not just thinking Mercury as, a word or a distant planet. You're immersing yourself in an entire constellation of sensory data and symbolic associations linked directly to that core idea.
You got it.
It sounds like an incredibly immersive learning experience, almost like building a virtual reality environment for your mind, but focused on a single concept, designed to make it profoundly real and accessible within your own consciousness.
That's a great way to put it, an internal VR. And the text then moves from this conceptual mapping, this mental architecture, to the practical application, preparing your place of working accordingly.
The physical space.
Yes. For our Mercury example, this might mean creating, say, an orange circle on the floor. One at each point of the star. drawing the sigil of the spirit Taftatharath in specific colors, perhaps using other relevant devices or symbols from those columns in Book 777.
So you make the physical space match the mental correspondences.
Exactly. But what's crucial here, and really interesting, is the text's highly pragmatic caveat. It insists these rituals need not be slavishly imitated.
Oh, so you don't have to follow the instructions to the letter.
Not necessarily. It explicitly states that the student should do nothing the object of which he does not understand. Understanding is key. And it even says that his own crude rituals may be more effective than the highly polished ones of other people, as long as the student truly understands the underlying object and intention.
Okay, that's a really key insight, isn't it? It's not about the fancy props or the perfect performance.
Not at all. It's about the internal resonance and understanding. It emphasizes personal comprehension and intention over rigid adherence to external forms. This fosters, theoretically, a deeper connection and greater efficacy for the individual practitioner.
Because it's their ritual then, not just something they're copying.
Precisely. It's about internalizing the principles, understanding why you're using orange Y8 lamps, not just mimicking the action someone else wrote down.
Right. And this leads to, well, what you call the aha moment.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
This brings us to what I found to be a genuinely revealing part of the text. It spells out the general purpose of all this preparation.
Okay, what is it?
It states, quite plainly, if it be his wish to master one particular idea, he must make every material object about him directly suggest that idea.
Make everything point to that one thing.
Exactly. So the specific number of lights, their color, the particular perfumes filling the air, every element is carefully chosen and arranged to bring Mercury or whatever concept you're focusing on vividly and constantly to mind.
Total immersion.
Total immersion. And then the text explicitly and rather startlingly states, the whole magical apparatus and ritual is a complex system of mnemonics.
Mnemonics. Memory aids. So this whole elaborate setup, it's a memory palace.
In a highly sophisticated, multisensory way, yes.
Yeah.
That's a great way to think about it. It reframes what might seem to an outside observer like mystical, maybe even superstitious practices.
Right, lighting candles, drawing symbols.
Into a sophisticated system for memory, focus, and profound mental conditioning. It's an immersive method to imprint an idea onto the mind, not just intellectually, but through multiple sensory inputs and deep symbolic associations.
It transforms an elaborate ritual into a highly advanced form of mental training, designed to make an idea stick, not just in your intellect, but in your entire sensory experience, your whole being.
That's the core insight. It's not simply about remembering facts, like memorizing dates for a history test. It's about saturating the environment, both your external space and your internal mental space, with symbols all related to a single concept.
Conditioning the mind.
Exactly. Thereby conditioning the mind to dwell on and absorb that idea with incredible depth and focus. Think about modern learning techniques, right? We use visualization, we create conducive study environments, we use mnemonic devices like acronyms or rhymes. This ancient system seems to take that principle to an entirely different level, making it a multi-sensory, full-body, fully immersive learning experience. It's about training one's internal focus with unparalleled precision. It suggests that by fully immersing yourself in the symbolic language of an idea, its colors, sounds, smells, shapes, associated myths, you can achieve a level of absorption and understanding that goes way beyond conventional intellectual grasp. It fosters a kind of profound cognitive restructuring around that idea.
So this isn't just about belief, then. It's a highly advanced method to control and expand the mind through extremely detailed sensory and symbolic associations. A mental training ground using everything from sight and smell to numbers and sounds and specific physical movements.
That's how it's presented, yes, a rigorous training system.
Okay, and before moving to the really advanced methods, the text specifies 3 preliminary practices, things that must be completely mastered.
The building blocks.
Right, they are. 1, assumption of God forms, 2, vibrations of divine names, and 3, rituals of banishing and invoking.
And these 3 practices really form the bedrock of the deeper work. They're designed to build the necessary mental muscle, the focus, the control needed to navigate the more complex and potentially more challenging experiences that come later.
They're the essential toolkit.
Absolutely. The foundational skills for anyone venturing further into this demanding system.
Okay, so let's explore these foundational practices in more detail, starting with number 1, the assumption of God forms. This sounds incredibly immersive, like a full-body, full-mind experience.
It's designed to be, yes.
Yeah.
Very engaging.
The instruction begins with the student becoming thoroughly familiar with the magical images of the gods of Egypt, studying them intently in museums or books.
Paying close attention to the details, the postures, the symbolism.
And it doesn't stop at just looking, right? The text insists these images must then be carefully painted by him, both from the model and from memory.
Yes, and that's a crucial step. It emphasizes active engagement, not passive observation. The act of painting, especially from memory, forces a much deeper level of internalization.
You really have to know the image to paint it from memory.
Exactly. It solidifies the image in the mind in a way that simply looking at a picture never could. It becomes part of your own internal landscape. It's a multi-sensory form of study visual kinesthetic.
And why Egyptian forms specifically?
The text says they are preferred because they possess the best defined magical images. This suggests the system values clarity and specificity in its symbolic tools. The idea is perhaps that these ancient archetypes are particularly effective for this kind of internal work because their associations, their forms, their meanings are so well established and distinct.
Less ambiguity.
Precisely. Less ambiguity, more focused symbolic power.
So you're not just looking at a picture. You're actively recreating it. You're putting your own effort, your own energy into imprinting it onto your mind. It's a really active form of study, demanding a level of engagement that forces deep cognitive processing.
That's the idea.
And then the practice really intensifies, doesn't it? The student, seated or maybe standing in the specific god position, the characteristic attitude of the chosen deity.
Embodying the posture.
Right. They should imagine his image as coinciding with his own body or as enveloping it. Almost like putting on a psychic suit of armor or merging with the image.
A deep visualization exercise.
And this isn't just a quick thought like, okay, I'm Horus now. It has to be practiced meticulously, over and over, until mastery of the image is attained and an identity with it and with the god experienced.
That word identity is key. This is a profound exercise in visualization and self-identification. It's about temporarily altering your own self-perception to embody the specific archetypal qualities represented by that God form.
Like method acting for the soul.
That's one way to think about it, yeah. An imaginative, embodied form of empathy or role-playing, but operating on a spiritual or psychological level. The aim is to achieve a deep internal resonance with the qualities of that archetype, its strength, its wisdom, its specific mode of being.
Feeling it from the inside out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is the focus on experiencing identity with the God. It's not just a visual exercise, it's about feeling those qualities and characteristics within yourself. And the text notes, almost with a sigh, that no simple and certain tests of success in this practice exist.
So it's totally subjective.
Largely, yes. It highlights its subjective and internal nature. It reinforces that the true measure of success is the practitioner's own internal experience and transformation, not some external validation. It's a deep dive into your own psyche, or perhaps the collective unconscious, finding resonance with these powerful archetypal patterns.
Okay. Building on that internal identification, the next foundational practice is the vibration of God names. How does this fit in?
This is presented as a further means of identifying the human consciousness with that pure portion of it which man calls by the name of some god. So, another way to connect with and embody those archetypal energies.
Using sound and breath this time.
And posture and visualization, yes. The text provides a highly specific, almost choreographed set of steps for this, using the example of the Egyptian god Horus. It sounds incredibly intricate and physically demanding when you read it.
Walk us through the Horus example. It sounds intense.
Okay, so the instructions begin with the practitioner standing, arms outstretched, like a cross. They then breathe deeply through their nostrils, imagining the god's name, in this case, Horus, entering with the breath. Almost like inhaling the very essence of that name, the power it represents.
Visualizing the name coming in.
Yes. Then, that name is consciously guided, visualized, descending slowly through the body, from the lungs down to the heart, then the solar plexus, the navel, the generative organs, right down to the feet.
A specific pathway.
Very specific. The moment it feels like it touches the feet, you perform a sequence of actions very quickly. You advance the left foot about 12 inches. You throw your body forward. Your hands, which were drawn back to the sides of your eyes, shoot forwards. So you're suddenly standing in the typical active projective pose of the god Horus.
The striking pose.
Exactly. And simultaneously, the name is imagined rushing back up through the body while you breathe it out forcefully through your nostrils using the air you held in.
Like projecting the name outwards.
Precisely. And the text insists this must all be done with all the force of which you are capable. maximum physical and mental exertion. Full power.
No holding back.
None. Finally, you withdraw the left foot, returning to a balanced stance, and place your right forefinger to your lips. This assumes the characteristic silent, contemplative pose of the god Harpocrates, the child form of Horus, often depicted signifying silence or the secrets of initiation.
Wow, that's a lot of steps. Very physical.
It's a truly sophisticated practice. It's physically demanding, yes, integrating breath control, pranayama, precise visualization, dharana, the power of sound through that forceful vibration or exhalation of the name, and exact physical posture, asana.
Bringing all the prerequisites together.
Absolutely. It's a full-body engagement designed to intensely focus the mind and body on that chosen divine name, pushing the practitioner towards their physical and mental limits.
And the contrast between the Horus and Harpocrates poses.
It's deeply significant, I think, perhaps representing an active projection of the invoked force or quality, Horus, immediately followed by a state of internalized absorption, integration, and reflective silence, for Harpocrates. It's about not just evoking the energy, but containing and integrating it.
Evoke and absorb.
Something like that. And that instruction, all the force of which you are capable, isn't just about trying hard. It's about generating a powerful psychophysical state. A state intense enough, perhaps, to break through the limitations of ordinary consciousness.
And the signs of success, if you actually manage this properly, they sound extreme.
They are described in quite extraordinary terms, yes, touching on profound physical and auditory experiences, not just subtle internal shifts.
Like what? Physical exhaustion.
Yes. The text says a single correctly performed vibration should entirely exhaust your physical strength. It should leave you feeling hot, possibly perspiring violently, maybe even having difficulty standing. A complete physical release or expenditure of energy.
Wow. And auditory.
This is even more dramatic. The student might hear the name of the god vehemently roared forth, as if by the concourse of 10,000 thunders.
10,000 thunders. Seriously.
That's the description. And crucially, it should appear to him as if that great voice proceeded from the universe and not from himself.
So, an external hallucination. Or a profound internal resonance.
It's described as seeming external, universal. And in terms of altered perception, the text states that ideally, all consciousness of anything but the God form and name should be absolutely blotted out. Complete absorption.
One will focus.
And intriguingly, the longer it takes for normal perception to return, the better.
The longer you stay out of it, the more successful it was.
That seems to be the implication. These descriptions point towards a truly altered state of consciousness, a profound, maybe overwhelming experience where the usual boundary between self and external reality just dissolves. The invoked force feels universal, immense. This isn't just imagining something vaguely. It's about experiencing a complete internal shift. It goes right back to those initial goals. Widening of the horizon of the mind and also the deep control of the mind required to even attempt, let alone sustain such an experience.
That 10,000 thunders description, it's clearly not literal sound, is it?
Yeah, almost certainly metaphorical, yeah. A metaphor for a profound, all-encompassing auditory perception, maybe an internal sound, that signifies the complete absorption of consciousness in the invoked name or force.
A breakthrough experience.
It suggests a temporary dissolution of the ordinary ego, a direct, intense apprehension of an archetypal force, leading potentially to a profound internal transformation and a reshaping of one's perceptual reality. It implies that success means being utterly consumed by the experience, to the point where normal consciousness is just temporarily suspended, gone.
Okay, so once those personal identification and vibration practices are, ideally, mastered, cultivating that deep internal connection to archetypes and honing intense concentration, the text moves into more structured ceremonial work, using the pentagram and hexagram rituals.
Yes, the geometry comes into play now.
These are described as absolutely essential. They must be committed to memory, forming the next critical layer of discipline practice. The goal here seems to be about shaping the internal and external environment for magical work.
Creating the right conditions, defining the space.
It starts with the lesser ritual of the pentagram, often abbreviated as the LRP. And the LRP itself begins with something called the Kabbalistic cross. How does that work?
It's a relatively simple but profound sequence of gestures and words. You start by touching your forehead and saying ate, which is Hebrew for unto thee.
Okay.
Then you bring your hand down to your breast or solar plexus area and say Malkut, meaning the kingdom.
Right.
Then touch the right shoulder saying Vegebro, meaning and the power.
Got it.
Then the left shoulder saying Vegedula, Vegidula, meaning and the glory.
Power and glory. Balance.
Exactly. Finally, you clasp your hands together on your breast over the heart perhaps and say, Le'olam Amen. Le'olam Amen, which means to the ages amen, or forever amen.
So it connects above, below, right, left, and centers it.
Precisely. It's seen as a way of affirming the practitioner's connection to the divine, establishing equilibrium, grounding, and empowering them within a larger cosmic framework before the main ritual begins.
Okay, that's the intro. Then the main body of the LRP. It involves moving around.
Yes, addressing the cardinal points. You turn to the east first, with a magical weapon, traditionally a dagger for this ritual. Though the text mentions a wand, you trace an invoking earth pentagram in the air before you.
A 5-pointed star. Specific way to draw it.
Yes, starting from the top point down to the lower left, etc., for invoking earth. And as you trace it, you vibrate the primary Hebrew divine name associated with God, IHVH, often pronounced Yehovah, or similar. You really try to feel the vibration.
Okay, east, done. Then
you turn to the south, drawing the same pentagram, but this time vibrating the name Adonai, Adonai, meaning Lord.
Adonai, got it.
Turn to the west, same pentagram, vibrate Agah, Yahya, meaning I am or I will be.
West, Sagittæ.
Turn to the north, same pentagram, vibrate GLA. Now, AGLA is interesting. It's a notaricon, an acronym for the Hebrew phrase Ateh Gibor Le'olam Adonai, meaning Thou art mighty forever, O Lord.
AGLA. Okay, so you've drawn pentagrams and vibrated names in all 4 directions. Now what?
Now you return to the east, completing the circle. Extend your arms out in the form of a cross. And then you declare the presence of the archangels guarding the quarters.
Calling in protection.
Or activating those archetypal forces within your sphere.
And you say?
Before me, Raphael, associated with east and air.
Raphael in front.
Behind me, Gabriel, west and water.
Gabriel behind.
On my right hand, Michael, south and fire.
Michael on the right.
On my left hand, Oriel, north and earth.
Oriel on the left. Then comes the visualization part.
Yes. You visualize the pentagrams you drew flaming around you, perhaps in brilliant blue or gold light, and say, "For about me flames the pentagram."
Feeling that boundary.
Exactly. And then visualize a hexagram, a 6-rayed star, perhaps within you or forming a column of light around you, and say, "And in the column stands the 6-rayed star." This connects the macrocosm, the star, with the microcosm, you in the column.
Bringing it all together.
Right. And the ritual concludes by repeating the Kabbalistic cross exactly as you did at the beginning, bringing you back to that grounded, centered, balanced state, but now within a defined and purified space.
So what's the overall effect supposed to be? Cleaning the room, psychically speaking?
That's a common interpretation, yeah. Banishing unwanted influences, clearing the mental space. But it's more than just clearing. It's also about defining and consecrating. This elaborate sequence of actions, sounds, visualizations, it does more than just mark out physical space. It's intended to fundamentally alter the practitioner's mental and energetic environment.
How so?
Each movement, each vibration, each divine name acts as a powerful signal to the subconscious. It's essentially saying, okay, this is now consecrated mental workspace.
Yeah.
It's clear of distraction. It's focused on my intent. It's like setting up a very sophisticated cognitive firewall, maybe, and a high bandwidth connection for your internal work.
Preparing the mind for deeper stuff.
Exactly. Preparing it for more sensitive operations. The invocation of archangels, for instance. It's likely less about literal beings appearing and more about mentally establishing powerful, protective archetypal forces at the cardinal points of your consciousness, reinforcing the boundaries of your ritual space and focusing your mental energy.
Establishing a sphere of influence and protection.
Precisely. A method of defining a mental and energetic perimeter, allowing the practitioner to work within a focused, purified space, which is critical for controlling the mind and avoiding distractions or unwanted influences later on.
Makes sense. It's less about a physical wall and more about a mental boundary, a psychological space you create and control. Now, there's also a greater ritual of the pentagram mentioned. How's that different?
It allows for much more specific elemental work, going beyond just the general clearing of the LRP or the earth focus of its pentagrams. You can use it to specifically invoke or banish one of the 4 classical elements or spirit.
So if you wanted to work specifically with fire energy, for instance.
Exactly. In the greater ritual, the pentagrams are traced in the air, often with a sword, which is traditionally associated with air and intellect, but used here for its defining power. The names are spoken aloud, and crucially, there are specific physical signs, mudras, essentially used for each element.
Oh, different hand gestures.
Yes. For spirit, there are actually 2 aspects, active and passive. For spirit active, you use the name AHIH, AA, And for spirit passive, AGLA, both are accompanied by the signs of the portal, a specific gesture sequence that involves symbolically rending and then closing a veil with your hands. It represents passing through a gateway.
Interesting. And for the 4 elements?
For fire, the divine name used is Elohim, and the sign is called the sign of 4 degrees, 7 degrees. You raise your arms above your head, palms touching, fingers may be interlocked, forming an upward pointing triangle, evoking rising flames.
Okay. Water?
For water, the name is El, a very basic name for God. The sign is 3 degrees, 8 degrees. You cross your hands over your chest, right over left usually. Thumbs and index fingers may be forming an apex down triangle, symbolizing descending water or a cup.
Air?
Air uses the name IHVH, Yehowo, the same primary name from the LRP's East Quarter. The sign is 2 degrees, 9 degrees. You stretch both arms upwards and outwards, elbows bend at right angles, palms facing upwards as if you're supporting a weight, like holding up the sky.
And Earth?
Earth uses Adonai, same as the LRP South Quarter. The sign is 1 degrees, 10 degrees. This is more dynamic. You advance the right foot, stretch out the right hand upwards and forwards, and the left hand downwards and backwards, palms open. A very grounded, stable, almost resistant posture.
So each element gets its own name, its own pentagram, tracing direction maybe, and its own specific physical sign.
Exactly. This ritual deepens the level of precision enormously. It allows for tailored elemental invocation or banishing, depending on the direction you trace the pentagram and the specific intent. It intensifies the focus on a particular energetic quality, reinforcing all those mental associations you built up studying book 777.
And those numbers, like 4 degrees, 7 degrees, what are they?
Those refer to grades within the Eris system itself, the initiatory structure linked to the publication of Liber O. For example, 4 degrees, 7 degrees corresponds to the grade of teased on the Tree of Life, associated with Jupiter and Mercy, but also fire in this context. Associating a physical gesture or a ritual action with a specific grade integrates the immediate practice with the practitioner's broader, long-term journey through the system.
So it connects the ritual to their overall progress.
Exactly. It transforms an abstract concept like a grade into an embodied experience, reflecting their level of advancement or the specific energies they're working with. It creates this dynamic interplay between internal intention, symbolic action, and the structure of the entire system.
Okay, that's pretty complex. Then, after mastering those, you move on to the hexagram rituals, starting with the lesser ritual of the hexagram, or LRH.
Correct. And this is typically performed after the LRP, building on that established, cleansed, and balanced space. The LRH brings in even more dense symbolism, particularly Egyptian and Kabbalistic themes woven together.
How does it start?
You stand upright, facing east again, holding your magical weapon in a specific position. Then you begin with a really potent declaration, often called the analysis of the keyword, INRI.
Like on the Christian cross?
Yes, but reinterpreted here Kabbalistically and alchemically. It's followed by Yod, Nun, Resh, Yod, which are the Hebrew letters corresponding to INRI and represent Virgo, Scorpio, Sol, the sun. Then comes the interpretation. Virgo, Isis, Mighty Mother, Scorpio, Apophis, Destroyer, Sol, Osiris, slain and risen.
A whole cosmological drama in a few words.
Exactly. Birth, death, resurrection continues. Isis, Apophis, Osiris, summarizing the cycle, and culminates in the vibration IAO, a very ancient Gnostic divine name often associated with the solar cycle and transformation.
Wow. Okay. Then come physical signs again?
Yes, a sequence of very evocative physical signs that enact that symbolic drama. First, the sign of Osiris slain, where you extend your arms out on the cross, dead on the cross. Then the sign of the morning of Isis. You raise your right arm straight up, lower your left arm straight down, pointing towards the ground, and turn your head over your left shoulder as if looking down in grief.
Powerful imagery.
Then the sign of Apophis and Typhon, representing the destructive forces. You raise both arms up at about a 60-degree angle above your head, palms outwards, and throw your head back, embodying chaos or resistance.
Okay.
Then the sign of Osiris risen. You cross your arms over your breast, right over left, and bow your head. Resurrection and reintegration.
Back to stability.
And finally, you briefly extend your arms out again and then recross them, declaring LVX, Lux, which is Latin for light, adding the light of the cross, symbolizing illumination arising from the entire process.
It's a whole ritual just in the opening.
It really is. Deeply symbolic.
Yeah.
After this invocation, you then proceed to trace specific hexagrams, the 6-pointed stars, in the 4 cardinal directions.
Different from the pentagrams, what do they represent?
Hexagrams are often associated with planetary forces or the union of opposites, like the upward and downward triangles. In the LRH, they're typically used to invoke or banish the energies of the classical planets, or sometimes the elements, in a different way than the pentagrams.
How are they traced?
With your magical weapon, you trace the hexagram of fire in the east. This hexagram is formed by two equilateral triangles, both with their apices pointing upwards, perhaps one interlaced with the other. As you trace it, you vibrate the word Ararita.
Ararita again. That acronym meaning one is his beginning.
One is his individuality. His permutation is one, exactly. It emphasizes the unity underlying the diversity of forces.
Okay. East is fire, Ararita, then them.
You turn to the south and trace the hexagram of Earth. This one has the apex of the lower triangle pointing downwards, symbolizing stability and connection to the Earth. It might be visualized as inscribed within a circle. Vibrate Ararita.
South, Earth, Ararita, west.
In the west, you trace the hexagram of air. This one is often depicted like the Earth hexagram, but with the bases of the two triangles coinciding, forming a kind of diamond shape, perhaps symbolizing balance and mediation. Vibrate Ararita.
West, air, Ararita. North.
North is for the hexagram of water. Here, the lower triangle is placed above the upper one, so their apices coincide or point towards each other, symbolizing reflection or the fluidity of water. Vibrate Ararita.
North, water, Ararita. So each direction gets a specific hexagram form in the same mantra.
Correct. And the ritual then concludes by repeating the entire opening sequence, the INRI analysis, and the signs of Osiris, Isis, Apophis. For banishing, the only difference is the direction in which you trace the hexagrams. You'd reverse the tracing motion for each one.
Still very intricate. It feels like you're layering protections or energies.
That's a good way to think about it. The LRP clears the space. The LRH tunes it, perhaps invoking planetary or broader elemental forces in a balanced way, using this complex blend of Egyptian, Kabbalistic, and geometric symbolism. The mantra Ararita constantly reinforces the underlying unity.
And then there's a greater ritual of the hexagram, too, getting even more specific.
Exactly. The greater ritual of the hexagram, or GRH, is used explicitly to invoke or banish the energies of specific planets or sometimes zodiacal signs.
So if you wanted to work with, say, Jupiter energy specifically.
This is the tool you'd use. Interestingly, the text states that for the GRH, only the hexagram of Earth, the downward pointing triangle one, is typically used for all planets. But the key difference is where you start tracing the hexagram from.
The starting point changes.
Yes. Each planet is assigned a specific point in the hexagram from which the invoking trace begins. For example, to invoke Jupiter, you would start tracing the lower triangle from its right-hand point, moving dextro-rotary, clockwise. Then you'd trace the upper triangle starting from its left-hand point.
Wow, okay. That's incredibly precise.
It is, and crucially, you also trace the astrological sigil of the planet, the familiar symbol for Jupiter, in the very center of the hexagram you've just drawn in the air.
Adding another layer of symbolic focus.
Precisely. You then use a specific conjuration, which includes the mantra Ararita, and the specific god name corresponding to the planet you're working with, found in Book 777, of course. For banishing, you trace the same hexagram, but starting from the correct point and moving counterclockwise or widdershins and using a banishing conjuration.
This really shows the system's incredible adaptability and focus on precision, doesn't it? Aligning your internal work with specific astrological influences.
It does. It underscores the intense intentionality required behind every single action within this complex symbolic system. Every gesture, every uttered word, every drawn symbol is meticulously designed to direct and concentrate the practitioner's will toward a very specific purpose.
And how do you know if any of this is actually working? The LRP, the LRH, the GRH?
The text provides some practical, albeit subjective, feedback mechanisms. Success in banishing, it says, is generally known by a feeling of cleanliness in the atmosphere, like clearing the mental air, a sense of purity or emptiness.
Okay. And invoking?
Invoking is typically marked by a feeling of holiness, a sense of sacred presence, or the specific energy you intended to invoke filling the space.
Cleanliness or holiness? A bit vague.
The text admits these terms are vague, yes, acknowledging the subjective nature of these internal experiences. But it stresses a more concrete measure. Any imaginary figure or being that might appear shall instantly obey the will of the student when he uses the appropriate figure, meaning the correct pentagram or hexagram.
So control is the real test again.
Ultimately, yes. If phenomena arise, can you command them using the tools you've learned? That's the proof. And it adds that in obstinate cases where something doesn't obey, the student can even assume the form of the appropriate god, drawing on that mastery of god forms we discussed earlier, to exert control and enforce their will.
So it all ties back together. The God forms, the rituals, the control. It reiterates that core principle of mental discipline, doesn't it? Bending your perception and experience to your will.
It does. The effectiveness is ultimately judged by that subjective feeling, the cleanliness or holiness, but more importantly, by the student's demonstrable ability to command the internal or external phenomena that arise. It reinforces the idea that these are intense exercises in mental discipline, about achieving undeniable mastery over the internal landscape.
Asserting mental sovereignty.
That's a perfect way to put it. Mental sovereignty within the constructed reality of the ritual space. Yeah. And just as a final practical point here, the text includes an important precaution. Banishing rituals, typically the LRP, should be used at the commencement of any ceremony, whatever.
Start clean.
Always start clean. It's foundational. Ensures a clear, purified mental space before any other, potentially more complex or delicate work begins. Emphasizes the importance of mental hygiene and control right from the outset, like clearing your desk before starting a major project.
Okay, now we move into what seem like the really advanced practices. Building on all that foundational work, the God forms, the vibrations, creating the sacred mental space with the Pentagram and Hexagram rituals. These are the journeys of consciousness described in chapters 5 and 6.
Yes, moving beyond the ceremonial framework into direct manipulation of consciousness itself.
Chapter 5 is titled Viator in Regnis Arboris, which translates to something like The Traveler in the Kingdoms of the Tree of Life.
That's right, exploring the symbolic landscape of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life internally.
And the chapter provides a very detailed guide to what is commonly called astral projection or maybe out-of-body experiences, but it's framed here very much as a mental exercise, right? Not necessarily a literal separation of soul from body.
The emphasis is definitely on the willed projection of consciousness into a visualized form, yes. It's about creating and controlling a body of light or imagined body.
How does it begin? The instructions sound very specific.
Extremely specific. The student must be a complete physical rest. Bathed, robed with proper decorum, suggesting seriousness and ritual preparation. They must be in their place of working, which needs to be absolutely free from any disturbance.
Set and setting are crucial.
Absolutely. All the preliminary purifications, banishings, maybe invocations depending on the goal, must have been meticulously performed. Incense should be kindled to help create the right atmosphere. Total preparation.
Okay, prepared and ready, then what?
The first key step is to imagine one's own figure, very clearly. Preferably visualizing oneself robed in the appropriate magical garments and armed with the symbolic tools learned earlier.
Creating a mental double.
Exactly. And you visualize this figure either enveloping your physical body like a second skin of light or standing near you, perhaps directly in front of you.
Got it. Then comes the tricky part.
Then comes what the text explicitly describes as the great difficulty. You must transfer your consciousness into that imagined figure so that it feels like you are seeing with its eyes, hearing with its ears, rather than your physical ones.
Shifting your point of perception, that does sound difficult.
It's considered a major hurdle in this type of practice. Once that transfer of consciousness is achieved, or feels like it's achieved,
yes,
you cause the imagined figure, your visualized self, to rise in the air to a great height above the earth, consciously willing it upwards, transcending your immediate physical surroundings.
Okay, so you're flying in this imagined body.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
After rising, you stop and look around. Though the text intriguingly notes it's sometimes difficult to open the eyes of this subtle body, implying a challenge in maintaining the clarity and stability of the imagined perception.
Like the signal getting fuzzy.
Could be. You'll likely, the text says, see figures approaching, or become conscious of a landscape opening up around you, almost like entering a very vivid, interactive dreamscape.
And what do you do then? Just watch?
No, you interact. You're instructed to speak to any figures you encounter, and significantly, to insist upon being answered. You don't just passively accept what you see. You use the proper pentagrams and signs learned earlier, the LRP-GRP techniques, as tools of discernment and command. Testing the figures, establishing your authority.
So you're actively managing the experience, not just observing.
Actively managing, testing, controlling. You can then travel at will within this internal landscape, with or without guidance from figures you deem trustworthy. Exploring this inner reality, you can even employ special invocations, the text suggests, to cause particular places, perhaps symbolic locations on the Tree of Life to appear before you, suggesting a capacity to consciously shape this inner reality.
Wow. That's advanced visualization.
It's essentially presented as a sophisticated training regime for the imagination and consciousness, pushing the boundaries of mental visualization and, crucially, control. It's about creating an internal, vivid reality and maintaining absolute mastery within it, which directly contributes back to that core goal, improvement of the control of the mind.
And the warnings are pretty stark here too, right?
Oh, yes. The text explicitly warns to beware of the 1,000 subtle attacks and deceptions. You must carefully test the truth, the nature, of all encountered figures using the appropriate pentagrams.
How would that work?
The example given is that a hostile being, even if clothed in radiant glory, would supposedly shrivel or be unable to withstand the correctly applied pentagram or divine name. It's a tool for seeing past delusion.
So the attacks and deceptions aren't necessarily external demons?
Not necessarily, no. It could very well be interpreted as referring to the mind's own profound capacity for self-deception, for generating illusions, for projecting fears or desires onto these internal figures. These must be rigorously overcome through constant vigilance and the disciplined application of the symbolic tools you've learned.
Developing discernment.
Exactly. Practice, the text assures, makes the student infinitely wary, a testament to the development of that deep discernment needed to navigate these internal realms safely and effectively.
So it really is like a highly advanced form of lucid dreaming or guided visualization, but with very concrete steps, strict rules, and serious warnings about maintaining control and telling truth from illusion, an exploration of the internal landscape where the mind itself is the territory.
That's a very good description of how it's framed. And the text addresses returning, too. It says it's usually easy to return to the physical body, but if difficulty arises, maybe you get lost or too absorbed, the practitioner's trained imagination is their tool. For example, creating a chariot of fire to drive yourself earthwards, a symbolic act of conscious, willed re-entry.
But there are dangers mentioned, too.
Explicit dangers, yes. Fainting, obsession, getting stuck on an idea or image encountered, loss of memory, or even other mental faculties if one goes too far, stays out too long, or loses control. These reinforce the need for careful preparation, strong grounding, and absolute self-mastery.
Not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not presented that way. The instruction for returning is very precise. Cause the imagined body to perfectly coincide with the physical one again. Tighten your muscles, ground yourself physically, draw a deep breath. Put the forefinger to the lips, that Hippocrates sign again for silence and integration. And then awake by a clear, well-defined act of will.
And then write it all down.
Critically, yes. Record experiences soberly and accurately. This highlights the empirical, if subjective, nature of this system, treating these internal phenomena almost like data points to be analyzed, like a scientist recording experimental results, building up a personal map of these inner states.
An internal laboratory of consciousness.
Okay.
That's chapter 5. Then comes chapter 6, Sagittæ Translunam, the arrow beyond the moon. Sounds even more intense.
It is presented as a development of the previous experiment. The next stage, yes. And significantly, it's described as merging into a form of dharana, that deep, sustained concentration we mentioned earlier, and leading towards the very highest ends of the entire system.
The ultimate goal.
Or close to it. Interestingly, it reframes the purpose of the Chapter 5 practice, the astral travel. Its primary use, according to Chapter 6, is actually to familiarize the student with every kind of obstacle and every kind of delusion.
So chapter 5 is basically training for chapter 6.
In large part, yes. Training to ensure the student becomes the perfect master of every idea that may arise in his brain, able to dismiss it, to transmute it, to cause it instantly to obey his will. It's about achieving absolute mental control before attempting this next, far more demanding practice. It sets the stage for a true mental crucible.
Okay, so how does the arrow beyond the moon practice work? How is it different?
It begins exactly as before, same meticulous preparation, same projection of the imagined body, same transfer of consciousness. But this time it must be undertaken with the most intense solemnity and determination. The mindset is crucial.
More focus, more will.
Maximum focus, maximum will. Instead of rising to a certain height and then stopping to explore the landscape,
like in chapter 5.
This time, the imaginary body is caused to rise exactly perpendicular to the Earth's tangent. That means absolutely straight upwards, directly away from the Earth's surface, like an arrow shot at the zenith.
Okay, straight up. And then?
And you don't stop. You continue to rise relentlessly until fatigue almost overcomes him, pushing through the initial stages of tiredness.
Keep going, even when exhausted.
Yes. And if you are stopped by figures appearing, by phenomena, by internal resistance, the instruction is absolute. At all costs, rise above them, ignore them, transcend them, push past them.
No engaging, no testing this time, just onwards and upwards.
Exactly. The focus is purely on ascent. Even if, as the text dramatically puts it, his very life trembles on his lips, implying extreme physical or mental exhaustion, the feeling that you're at your absolute limit, on the brink of collapse.
Yeah.
The practitioner must force themselves upward and onward, relentlessly. This extreme exertion, this focused ascent, is to continue so long as the breath of life is in him.
Pushing beyond normal human limits.
That's certainly the implication. And whatever threatens or allures during this ascent, even if it's Typhon and all his hosts, the ultimate symbol of chaos and dissolution rising to stop you, or, conversely, even if a voice from the very throne of God himself calls out, bidding you stay, representing perhaps the ultimate temptation of spiritual bliss or surrender.
Ultimate threat, ultimate allure.
The command remains simple and absolute. Let him struggle on, ever on. You yield to nothing. You just keep going up.
Until what? What's the end point?
The end point described is one of total exhaustion. Finally, the practitioner's being must be swallowed up in fatigue, overwhelmed by its own inertia. Unable to ascend further, unable to maintain the effort, they sink, the text says, into blackness of unconsciousness.
Complete collapse.
A willed collapse brought on by maximal exertion of concentration and will, leading to a state beyond ordinary consciousness. And then, on coming back to himself, the instruction is the same as before. Write down soberly and accurately a record of all that hath occurred. Document the entire experience, including the breakthrough into unconsciousness and whatever might have been perceived in that state.
Wow. That is extreme. That's the ultimate test of will and focus described in the text, isn't it?
It certainly seems to be. It's about confronting and pushing past every conceivable limit. Physical discomfort, mental distractions, overwhelming internal phenomena, even the ultimate temptations of divine allure or infernal threat. Pushing past all of it to reach a state of absolute absorption, absolute focus.
Where the only thing left is the ascent itself.
Until even that becomes impossible. The act of finally sinking into unconsciousness as a result of this extreme, sustained effort, and then documenting it, suggests a truly transformative process. One where the limits of ordinary conscious perception are meant to be utterly shattered.
Breaking through.
Breaking through by sheer relentless force of will and concentration. The description of confronting Typhon, or the throne of God, is clearly symbolic, isn't it? It represents overcoming the ultimate internal challenges, the ultimate resistances, the ultimate temptations to surrender or stop, pushing beyond what seems humanly possible in the pursuit of absolute mental transcendence.
So the goal here isn't exploration like Chapter 5, but mastery. Mastery over all internal states.
That seems to be it. Not just mastery over specific ideas or images, but mastery over the very mechanisms of consciousness itself. It's about transcending the ordinary self, perhaps, through this ultimate act of focused will, reaching a state beyond phenomena.
This is intense. It really does sound like a kind of spiritual endurance sport. Pushing the mind and the will to their absolute break-it point, maybe beyond to achieve it. What? A state of complete transcendence, profound inner silence. Samadhi.
The text doesn't explicitly label the state achieved after the unconsciousness, but those are certainly the kinds of transcendental states suggested by such extreme practices in other traditions. It makes you wonder, as you say, how many people could actually achieve this level of sustained focus and will?
Which is probably why the text insists on such rigorous prerequisites, all those warnings, the gradual buildup. It's preparing you for a true mental, maybe even spiritual marathon, not a casual walk in the park.
Absolutely. It's about finding and perhaps forging that core, irreducible will within yourself. The arrow that flies beyond the moon, beyond the limits of ordinary mind.
And that concludes our deep dive into Liber O. Wow, what an intricate, detailed, and utterly fascinating system of practices we've unpacked.
It really is quite something, isn't it? The level of detail is remarkable.
We've explored everything from using those elaborate symbolic tables in Book 777 as essentially a complex mnemonic system for cognitive restructuring.
Building that internal architecture.
Right. All the way to these incredibly intense mental and physical practices, assuming God forms, vibrating divine names with full force, creating sacred space with pentagrams and hexagrams, and even these journeys of consciousness that push the boundaries of perception and will to what sound like their absolute limits.
Indeed. What really stands out to me, looking back over it all, is how this text, despite its, very esoteric language, its focus on ancient symbolism, gods, spirits.
All the magical trappings.
Right. Despite all that, it so explicitly frames its practices around these universally relevant goals. A widening of the horizon of the mind and an improvement of the control of the mind.
Expansion and mastery.
Yeah, exactly. The meticulous detail, the serious warnings about the psychological pitfalls, the constant emphasis on personal experience and practical results over objective belief. It all points to, I think, a profound, if unconventional, understanding of the human psyche.
Its potential and its pitfalls.
Precisely. Its capacity for both profound self-delusion and profound transformation. It's really a testament to the idea that structured, disciplined engagement with any sufficiently complex system, regardless of its surface mystical claims, can yield powerful internal results. It can shape perception, sharpen focus, build willpower in ways that are deeply impactful for the individual.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Whether you choose to see these practices as, literal magical acts aimed at influencing reality, or as highly elaborate metaphors for psychological and spiritual development, or maybe just as an intriguing historical curiosity.
3 very different lenses you could use.
Right. But regardless of the lens, the core principles embedded within Liber O principles of disciplined focus, immersive learning through rich symbolic systems, and the relentless, almost ruthless pursuit of self-mastery, they offer something truly compelling, don't they? It's a remarkable blueprint for extreme mental conditioning, however you interpret the symbols.
It absolutely is. And this raises, I think, an important closing question for us to consider and for you to consider too. In our current world, right, a world of seemingly ever-increasing information overload, constant digital distraction, maybe shortening attention spans.
The challenges are real.
They are. So, could the kind of immersive, multi-sensory, and highly disciplined mnemonic and concentration systems outlined in Liber O, even if we reinterpret them for modern context, maybe strip them of their more esoteric trappings, could they offer genuine insights? Insights into how we might better train our own minds today for focus, for memory, for deeper understanding.
Could we adapt these techniques, these methods of intense multi-layered association, this rigorous mental discipline? Could we use them to process the complex information bombarding us more effectively, to achieve greater mental control and clarity in our own, perhaps more mundane, but still challenging lives?
It's a provocative thought, isn't it? Could these ancient techniques hold keys to navigating our modern mental landscape?
A powerful thought to mull over, definitely. One that certainly invites further personal exploration, perhaps into the nature of focus and consciousness itself. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you. It's been fascinating.
We look forward to our next exploration with you.